The night was supposed to be ordinary, like any other. Eliza was excited. Her bachelorette trip was just around the corner. She was packing the last few things, chatting about the fun they'd have, the people she'd meet. I didn't say much in response, just nodded, trying to act normal. But deep down, my chest tightened in a way I couldn't explain. There was something in her smile that seemed off, like she was hiding something. I've always been a quiet guy, not one to stir the pot. Eliza, on the other hand, was full of energy. She lit up the room when she walked in, always full of stories, laughter, and life. So when she kissed me goodbye that night, promising to send pictures from her trip, I didn't think much of it. I didn't suspect anything, at least not consciously. But as she stepped out the door, there was a strange feeling in my gut, like something was left unsaid. That feeling didn't go away. It only grew as the hours passed. I tried to distract myself, watching TV, playing games, scrolling through social media. But I kept thinking about her. The more I thought about her, the more I started to realize how much I didn't know about her life outside of what we shared. And that's when the first thought hit me. What was she really doing on this trip? It wasn't a thought I planned to have. It wasn't something I wanted to face, but I couldn't ignore it. She had been different lately, distant, distracted. There were nights when she'd stay up late, typing away on her phone, hiding the screen when I walked in. I told myself it was nothing, just wedding stress, right? But now, in the silence of our home, alone without her, my mind couldn't let it go. I texted her again. No reply. I called. Straight to voicemail. It wasn't like her. She always made time for me, no matter what. And the longer I waited for a response, the more the unease grew inside me. I knew I had to do something. I wasn't sure what, but I had to act before the doubt consumed me completely. That's when I went to her desk. It wasn't my proudest moment, but when you're desperate, you do things you wouldn't normally do. I wasn't looking for anything in particular. I wasn't expecting to find some incriminating evidence. But when I opened the drawer, I found something I wasn't prepared for, a letter. It wasn't addressed to me, but to someone named Jay. My hands shook as I picked it up, the paper feeling oddly warm in my grasp. I unfolded it carefully, trying to steady my breath. It was handwritten, and the words on the page sent a shockwave through me. I can't wait for our time together. I know this weekend will be unforgettable. I'll be thinking about you every minute until I see you again. The words were clear, intimate. My heart dropped to my stomach. The letter was dated just a few days before Eliza left for her trip. The person she was writing to. I didn't recognize the name. Jay. Who was Jay? Why hadn't I heard of them? And why had Eliza written something like this? She hadn't mentioned anyone named Jay before. She hadn't even hinted at any plans like this. I stood there for a long time, holding the letter, my mind racing. I didn't want to believe it. It didn't make sense. Eliza wasn't that kind of person. She was loyal, loving, committed. But the evidence was right in front of me. The letter wasn't some mistake. It wasn't a joke. I put it back in the drawer and closed it, trying to force the thoughts from my mind. But I couldn't. They lingered, gnawing at the back of my thoughts. I couldn't stop thinking about the letter. Who was this Jay? What did it mean? I sat on the couch, the room suddenly feeling too small, too suffocating. The longer I sat there, the more I realized how much I didn't know. I'd never questioned our relationship before. I had always trusted Eliza completely. But now, everything felt fragile. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That maybe I had missed something all along. But what could I do? How could I confront her with something like this without making myself look like a fool? I didn't have answers. I only had more questions. And the longer I waited, the more the truth seemed to slip further away. The next morning, I woke up to another message. This one wasn't from Eliza. It was from an unknown number, and the message was short, almost too short. She's with him. Don't wait too long to find out. The blood drained from my face. Who was sending these messages? How did they know about Eliza? And why hadn't she said anything? I was already deep into something I couldn't understand. But I couldn't back out now. Something told me I was on the brink of uncovering a truth that would change everything. And as the hours passed, the questions only multiplied. What was I going to do with the letter? How much did I really know about Eliza? What was I really about to uncover? I wasn't sure I was ready for what was coming. But deep down, I knew I had no choice but to find out. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was slipping through my fingers. The letter was a puzzle piece I didn't know how to fit, and the more I thought about it, the more questions piled up. Who was Jay? Why hadn't Eliza ever mentioned them? Was I missing something? Or had she been hiding things all along? I spent the next day in a fog, my thoughts swirling around the letter. I tried to act normal. I didn't want to admit to myself what was happening. But every time I picked up my phone, I found myself staring at her contact information, wondering why she hadn't called. Why hadn't she texted? I thought about the trip, the excitement she had before she left, her smile when she walked out the door. But that smile felt different now. It was almost as if she knew something I didn't, something that I was just beginning to realize. Late that afternoon, I decided to take a walk. The fresh air might clear my head, I thought. But as soon as I stepped outside, my phone buzzed in my pocket. My heart raced when I saw the notification. Eliza had posted something on her social media. I clicked on it without thinking. The image was of her and a group of friends at a beach. She looked radiant, laughing with her arms raised high, a cocktail in hand. But the caption, "Living my best life with people who matter most," seemed off. She'd always been more private about her travels, usually texting me, keeping me in the loop. As I scrolled through her feed, I saw more posts, each one of her smiling with friends I didn't recognize. But what really caught my eye was the most recent one. Eliza and a man, their faces close together, both laughing as if the world around them didn't exist. Her arm was around his neck, and his hand was on her waist. I felt a sharp pang in my chest. Who was he? And why was she acting like this? I didn't even realize it, but I had stopped walking. My feet had brought me to a park bench without me noticing, and now I sat there, staring at the picture. My hands were shaking as I zoomed in on his face. I didn't recognize him at all. And the way she was touching him, it didn't look like just friends. It looked like something else, something more intimate. I couldn't stop myself. I needed answers, and I needed them now. I dialed her number again, my thumb hovering over the call button. But then I stopped. What if she picked up? What if she didn't? What would I say? How could I even ask her about a guy I didn't know? A guy I hadn't been told about? The minutes dragged by, and I couldn't bring myself to make the call. My phone buzzed again, and this time, it was a message. But it wasn't from Eliza. It was from that same unknown number. My heart sank when I saw the message. "You're about to find out everything." I sat frozen. What did that mean? Who was sending these messages? What was happening? My brain couldn't process it all. The whole situation felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Every time I tried to reason with myself, I kept coming back to that letter, the photo, and now the message. I could no longer deny that something was off. There was no way she was just on some carefree trip with friends. There was something more to it, and I was starting to feel like I was the last one to know. I looked up at the sky, the weight of the realization hitting me all at once. What if Eliza had been hiding things from me for longer than I could imagine? What if everything I thought I knew about our life together was a lie? I had no idea what was coming next, but I couldn't let this go. I had to get to the bottom of it, no matter what it took. I couldn't escape the gnawing feeling in my gut. Every minute that passed without an answer from Eliza felt like a weight pressing on my chest. I couldn't stop thinking about that message, the one that said, "You're about to find out everything." Who was this person? What were they talking about? And why did they know so much? It didn't make sense. There were too many questions, and not a single answer. I sat in my living room, the silence around me feeling suffocating. My phone screen lit up again, this time with another message from the unknown number. "She's not the woman you think she is. It's all a lie." That hit me like a punch to the stomach. A lie? I couldn't breathe. What was happening? How could this be true? Eliza had always been so open with me. I trusted her completely. Yet now, I was reading messages from a stranger who seemed to know everything about her. I had to know more. I had to understand what this was all about. I thought about the letter again, the one she had written. The words were still fresh in my mind. "I can't wait for our time together. I know this weekend will be unforgettable. I'll be thinking about you every minute until I see you again." Those words couldn't have been written by accident. But who was Jay? Was Eliza seeing someone else? The thought made my stomach churn. I had to confront her, ask her what was really going on. But how could I do that without sounding paranoid, like I was making things up in my head? I had to take action. I decided to take a risk. My instincts told me I needed to go to the place where the photos were taken, the beach. If I could just find something, anything that could give me answers, I could stop the swirling panic inside of me. I grabbed my keys and headed out the door, the uncertainty hanging heavy in the air. It wasn't even the fact that I might be confronting the worst possible reality. It was the fact that I didn't know what I was walking into. I could already picture it, Eliza with him, the man from the photo, What if I was just some fool, oblivious to what was really happening behind my back? The drive felt longer than it was. Every street I passed, every second of silence in the car, made my thoughts spiral deeper into doubt. I finally reached the beach, a quiet spot where Eliza and her friends had posted some of their pictures. I parked the car and stepped out, the salty air hitting my face as I scanned the area. It wasn't crowded, just a few people scattered along the shore. I walked along the path, trying not to look like I was searching for something, but I couldn't help myself. My eyes darted from person to person, looking for any sign, any clue. The sand crunched beneath my feet as I walked further down the beach. Then I saw him, the man from the photo. He was sitting alone at a small table near a cafe, looking out at the ocean. I froze. My heart pounded in my chest. He was real. He was here. And Eliza, where was she? I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to approach him, ask him who he was, why he was with my wife. But another part of me told me to wait, to see if I could learn more, gather more information before making a scene. I watched him for a while, my mind racing with a million questions. Was he waiting for her? Was she meeting him here? And if so, what was really going on between them? After what felt like an eternity, I saw a figure walking towards him, Eliza. She was smiling, her hair flowing in the wind, looking every bit the woman in the photos. My heart skipped a beat, and I could feel the blood drain from my face. She was walking toward him, and they were meeting. But the way they looked at each other, the way they moved together, it was different than just two friends meeting. There was an undeniable chemistry, a spark I couldn't ignore. My mind screamed for me to approach them, to confront them both, but I didn't move. I just stood there, hidden, watching them from a distance. They sat down at the table together, laughing, talking as if they hadn't missed a beat. Eliza reached across the table and touched his hand, softly, almost tenderly. I felt sick to my stomach. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had trusted with everything, was sitting there with someone else. The man, the J from the letter, was not just some passing acquaintance. He was someone important in her life. My hands were shaking as I turned away and walked back to my car. I couldn't stay there anymore. The image of Eliza and him, laughing together, replayed in my mind over and over. My chest felt tight as I tried to make sense of it all. But there was no making sense of it. I couldn't deny what I had seen with my own eyes. I didn't know what to do next. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. The woman I thought I knew, the one I had married, the one I had spent 5 years with, was someone else entirely. And I was left to pick up the pieces of a life I thought was real. The questions continued to swirl in my mind, each one darker than the last. Was this affair something that had been going on for months? Was I just a fool, unable to see the truth? Or had this just started during her trip? Either way, I couldn't ignore what I had just witnessed. And now, I was on the edge. I couldn't go back to the way things were. The truth was out there, and I was going to find it, no matter how much it hurt. I spent the next few hours pacing around my apartment, trying to make sense of what I had seen. The man, the way Eliza had looked at him, it all felt like a cruel joke. My mind was racing. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I had witnessed something I wasn't ready for, something that shattered everything I thought I knew about my marriage. But now, the question was, what was I going to do about it? I couldn't just let this go. I had seen too much. I had to confront her. I couldn't live in this limbo of doubt, of not knowing what was real. But the problem was, I didn't know what to expect when I did confront her. What if she denied it? What if she tried to explain it away, make me feel like I was overreacting? Could I trust anything she said after what I'd seen? I was torn. The uncertainty was eating me alive, but at the same time, I was scared. I was scared of what I might hear. I was scared of what I might find out. What if this wasn't just some fling, some secret moment? What if this had been going on for much longer? I finally made up my mind. I had to know. I had to hear it from her, face to face. There was no more running from the truth, no more pretending that everything was fine. I waited until the evening, when Eliza was supposed to be back from her trip. When she walked through the door, her usual bright smile quickly faded when she saw me standing there, tense and quiet. There was something in the air, a silence between us that felt heavy. "Hey," she said, putting down her bags. "How was your day?" I didn't answer right away. I just stared at her. Her eyes darted around, avoiding mine. I couldn't help but feel the distance between us, the way her presence now seemed foreign, like I didn't even know her anymore. "Eliza," I said, my voice shaky but firm. We need to talk. Her face changed, a subtle shift, but I noticed it. I could see the walls go up. She knew. She knew I had seen something. I'm not going to beat around the bush, I continued. I know about him. I saw the photos. I read the letter. I saw you with him. Her breath caught, and she froze for a moment, clearly struggling to find the right words. I could tell she wasn't expecting me to confront her like this. Not so soon, not so directly. But I wasn't going to wait for her to come up with some excuse. The silence stretched on, thick and suffocating. Who is he, Eliza? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. And why didn't you tell me? She looked down, her fingers nervously playing with the strap of her bag. It was a moment of hesitation, one I didn't need to see to understand. I had seen enough in the past few days to know what was happening. The guilt was written all over her face. I didn't want to hurt you, she said finally, her voice small. I didn't know how to tell you. The words hit me like a slap. I didn't know how to respond. How could she not know how to tell me? We were supposed to be partners. There was supposed to be no hiding, no secrets. Yet here I was, hearing it from her, something I should have never had to ask about. Don't lie to me, Eliza. I've seen everything, I said, my voice growing colder. The letter, the photos, you were with him. She closed her eyes, as though trying to summon the courage to admit what I already knew. Finally, she took a deep breath and spoke. His name is James. I met him a few months ago. We became close. She paused, her gaze dropping to the floor. It was never meant to be anything serious, but somewhere along the way, she trailed off, unable to finish her sentence. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. Close? What did that even mean? She had been seeing him behind my back for months. I had no idea. My mind couldn't process it. The anger, the confusion, the betrayal, they all collided at once. Eliza, how could you do this? I asked, barely able to keep my voice steady. How could you keep this from me? I was afraid, she whispered, her eyes filled with tears. I didn't want to lose you, but I couldn't stop it either. I got caught up in something, and it just happened. It wasn't the answer I wanted. It wasn't an excuse. I didn't know what I expected her to say, but I wasn't ready for this. For her to admit everything so casually, as if it wasn't a betrayal of everything we had built together. I turned away from her, unable to look at her face anymore. My hands balled into fists at my sides. The air between us felt thick with guilt and tension. I didn't know what to do next. Should I leave? Should I stay and try to fix things? I had no answers, just a heart full of questions that seemed impossible to answer. I turned back to face her, my emotions swirling. How long has this been going on, Eliza? I asked, the pain in my voice impossible to mask. She didn't answer right away. It felt like an eternity before she finally spoke. Since before the trip, she whispered. And that was it. The moment I knew there was no going back. Everything I thought I knew about her, about us, had just unraveled. Her words hung in the air, suffocating everything around us. Since before the trip, I felt like someone had just punched the air out of my lungs. The world around me seemed to slow down, like I was drowning in a sea of my own thoughts. All I could hear was the ringing in my ears, the shock of her admission sinking in. Before the trip, I repeated, as though trying to make sense of what she had said. But I couldn't. I couldn't make sense of any of it. How long had this been going on? How long had she been lying to me? The anger bubbled up in my chest, hot and suffocating, but I couldn't speak. My mouth was dry. I just stood there, staring at her, waiting for her to explain. Eliza sat on the couch, her face pale, eyes red from crying. She looked like she was breaking, but I didn't know how to feel sorry for her. How could I? She had shattered everything we had built together, everything I thought we were. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I swear, I never wanted to hurt you. But I fell for him. I wanted to scream, to yell at her, demand more answers, ask why. But instead, I just stood there, numb. The woman I had loved, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, she had betrayed me. And the worst part? I had no idea when it had started. Tell me everything. I finally managed to say, my voice cold. I want to know the truth. All of it. Her hands trembled as she wiped her eyes, but she didn't look at me. She stared at the floor, almost as if she were ashamed. And for a moment, I felt like I was looking at a stranger, not my wife. It started a few months ago, she said softly, her voice quivering. James and I, we had a connection. It wasn't planned. At first, it was just texting, innocent at first. But it got deeper. We started talking more, and I couldn't stop it. It felt real. I shook my head, struggling to understand. But you didn't tell me, Eliza. You didn't say anything. We were supposed to be honest with each other, remember? I know, she whispered, her voice cracking. I know. And I'm so sorry. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to hurt you. But then it got complicated. It was too late to back out. I was silent for a long time. I couldn't process it all at once. How could she have done this? How could she have let it go this far without telling me? Did you love him? I asked before I even realized the words were out. It was the only question that mattered now. Did she love him more than me? She didn't answer right away. She looked away, unable to meet my gaze. And that silence spoke volumes. I don't know, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought I did, but now I see what I've done, what I've lost, and I don't know if I can fix it. I don't know if I can fix us. Her words cut through me like a knife. She was lost, just as I was, but it wasn't enough. I needed more. I needed the truth, not just apologies. I needed to know how much of our marriage had been a lie, how deep this wound really went. I took a deep breath, forcing the anger down. What about the trip? What was that about? She swallowed hard, tears streaming down her face. It was supposed to be a way to get away from it all. I thought if I could just have this one weekend, I could figure out what I wanted. But when I saw James again, I couldn't stop myself. I told myself I would come back and fix everything, but I couldn't. I didn't know how. Her words felt like a betrayal all over again. She had gone on that trip, knowing what she was doing. She had made the choice to continue seeing him, to lie to me and pretend everything was fine. I ran my fingers through my hair, frustrated. So what now? What do we do with all of this? She looked up at me then, her eyes desperate. I don't know. I wish I had the answers, but I don't. I wish I could undo it all, but I can't. I never meant for this to happen. I was selfish. And now, I'm afraid I've ruined everything. The silence between us stretched on, and all I could feel was the overwhelming weight of her confession. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what she had just said, trying to figure out where we went from here. I couldn't keep standing still. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay when nothing felt right anymore. For the first time, I realized that I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know if I could forgive her, if I could even look at her the same way again. What if things could never go back to what they were? And even more terrifying, what if the man she had fallen for was still a part of her life, in some way that I could never understand? I stood there in the silence, unsure of what to do with all the chaos inside my mind. Eliza's confession had left me raw, exposed. She was sitting on the couch, her shoulders hunched, her tears dripping onto the floor, but none of that could erase the weight of what she had done. She had fallen in love with someone else, lied to me, and now she was crying about it. I couldn't decide if I was angry or heartbroken, but I knew one thing for sure. Nothing between us would ever be the same. I walked to the window, needing to escape the suffocating air between us. Outside, the city lights blurred into the distance, but inside, the world had never seemed smaller. How long? I asked, my voice shaking despite myself. How long had you been seeing him? Eliza looked up, her face a mask of regret. She hesitated, searching for words. I don't know, she whispered. It wasn't planned. At first, it was just a connection, a spark. I didn't mean for it to go this far. A spark, I repeated bitterly. You don't think I would have noticed? We've been together for 5 years, Eliza. You think I wouldn't see the change? She flinched, and I could tell I had struck a nerve. She hadn't meant to hurt me, but she had, in ways I didn't even know how to process. I could feel the anger rising again, thick and suffocating. Why didn't you tell me? Why keep it a secret? You think I wouldn't understand? I was scared, she whispered, her eyes pleading with me for understanding. Scared of losing you. I didn't want to admit to myself, let alone to you, that this was happening. I thought I could handle it, that I could juggle both of you, but I couldn't. I turned away from her, pacing again. My heart was hammering in my chest. So what now, Eliza? My voice had lost its edge, replaced by something else. Something I couldn't even identify. Do you want to be with him? Is that what this is? Is he your future now? She didn't answer immediately. Her lips trembled as she looked at the floor, not daring to meet my eyes. I don't know, she said quietly. I don't know what I want anymore. The words hit me harder than anything else she had said. She didn't know. She didn't know what she wanted. And I stood there, stuck in this nightmare, waiting for a choice that would never come. I felt like I was watching our whole relationship crumble in front of me, the pieces of it falling away one by one, and I couldn't do a damn thing to stop it. How had it come to this? I thought we were solid, invincible in our love. But now, I was left to pick up the broken pieces of a life that had once seemed perfect. I walked over to her, my emotions swirling like a storm inside me. Her eyes were red and swollen, but she was still the woman I had married. Or at least, she looked like her. Everything else was a lie. "I'm sorry," she said softly, her voice barely a whisper. "I never meant to hurt you." Her apology felt hollow, like a band-aid over a wound that was too deep to heal. "Sorry doesn't fix this, Eliza. Sorry doesn't change anything." My voice cracked, and I fought back the overwhelming urge to break down right there in front of her. I didn't know who I was anymore. She reached out for me, her hand trembling, but I stepped back. The distance between us now felt miles apart. "What do you want me to say?" she asked, her voice cracking with emotion. "What do you need from me?" I stared at her, trying to make sense of it all. But I couldn't. I couldn't figure out what I needed. Did I want her to fight for us? Did I want to forgive her? Or was it too late for that? "You've already made your choice, haven't you?" I said, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. "You've been seeing him behind my back. And now, you don't even know what you want. Maybe it's over, Eliza. Maybe I'm done." Her face crumpled, the tears flowing harder now, but I couldn't bring myself to console her. Not when the damage had been done. I had trusted her with everything, and she had shattered that trust without a second thought. "I love you," she said, her voice desperate. "I swear I do, but I don't know what happened. I never meant for it to go this far." The words were just that. Words. Empty, meaningless. They didn't change anything. The damage had already been done. The betrayal was real. And now, we were both stuck in the wreckage. I turned away, walking toward the door, needing space to think, to breathe. "I can't do this right now," I said, my voice hollow. "I need to be alone." She reached out to stop me, but I didn't let her. I walked out of the door, closing it behind me with a finality that sent a cold shiver down my spine. I didn't know where I was going, or what I was hoping to find, but I couldn't stay there with her anymore. Not like this. Not with everything we had built falling apart around us. As I stepped into the night, the cold air cutting through my skin, I realized one thing. No matter how much I loved her, I couldn't ignore the truth. And the truth was, Eliza had already made her choice. The question now was whether I could ever forgive her, or if I even wanted to. I didn't know how long I had been walking. The cold night air felt like it was pushing me forward, yet every step I took only seemed to distance me further from anything I recognized. My mind kept replaying the conversation with Eliza over and over, like some sick loop I couldn't escape from. The pain was raw, but what hurt the most was the feeling of betrayal, of having been completely blindsided by someone I thought I knew better than anyone else. My feet eventually led me to the quiet park down the street from our apartment. I sat on one of the benches, not sure what I was waiting for. Maybe a sign. Maybe some moment of clarity. But the more I sat there, the more I realized that there was no clarity to be found. Not tonight. I pulled out my phone, my fingers hovering over the screen. I had been getting messages from that unknown number, the one that had been feeding me cryptic warnings about Eliza. I had ignored most of them up until now, but something in me snapped. I opened the thread. The last message was still fresh on my mind. "You're about to find out everything." I scrolled up to the first message from this person. It wasn't long, just a few sentences, but they felt like the weight of 100 secrets. "She's been hiding things from you. Don't wait too long to find out." The texts had kept coming, more urgent with each one, more specific. I couldn't stop myself. Who was this person? How did they know so much? Why were they watching us? I had been trying to move past it all, to pretend that everything was just a misunderstanding, a series of unfortunate events. But deep down, I knew I couldn't ignore this anymore. Someone out there knew what was really going on. Someone who wasn't afraid to make sure I saw the truth. I typed a response, my fingers trembling as I wrote. "Who are you? Why are you telling me all this?" I hit send before I could think better of it, my heart pounding in my chest. A part of me was terrified of what would come next. But the other part, the part that had been silent for so long, was desperate for answers. Minutes passed, and just as I was starting to doubt that I would hear anything back, The phone buzzed with a new message. You need to listen carefully. It's not just about her. It's about everything you've missed. She's not the person you think she is. My hands were shaking as I read it. This wasn't just about Eliza anymore. It was bigger than that, deeper than I had ever imagined. I had no idea what to believe, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I couldn't walk away from this. I had to find out what was really happening. I had to uncover everything. But as the message hung there in the darkness of the night, one thing became painfully clear. My life was no longer my own. Everything I thought I knew had been ripped away, and I was left chasing shadows. I stared at my phone, trying to make sense of the words. She's not the person you think she is. The message echoed in my mind, and for a moment, everything felt too overwhelming. The betrayal, the secrets, the uncertainty about everything I thought I knew. It all seemed too much to handle. But something shifted inside me. I realized that no matter how bad things had gotten, I still had a choice. A choice not just about Eliza, but about myself. I couldn't let this darkness consume me, not without knowing the truth. I needed closure. Not just from Eliza, but from this entire nightmare. The phone buzzed again. Another message. You'll get your answers. Just don't let your fear guide you. You're stronger than this. I took a deep breath. Fear had been guiding me for so long. Fear of the truth. Fear of the unknown. But in that moment, I knew I had to confront everything. I wasn't going to let this define me. I stood up from the bench and walked back toward my apartment. My mind was clearer now. I wasn't just running away anymore. I was ready to face whatever came next. The anger and the heartbreak were still there, but they no longer controlled me. I had taken back the power, even if it meant facing the hardest truths. When I opened the door to the apartment, Eliza was sitting on the couch, waiting for me. She looked up at me, her eyes tired, her face puffy from the tears she had shed. I didn't know what I would say, but I knew I couldn't let this go any longer. I spoke to someone. I said, my voice steady. I've heard everything. All of it. Her eyes widened, a mix of guilt and fear crossing her face. But instead of retreating, instead of lying or defending herself, she just nodded, as if she knew this was the moment when everything would come to light. I'm sorry, she said again, her voice breaking. I never wanted you to find out like this. But now that you have, I don't know where to start. I walked over to her and sat down. For the first time, I saw her for what she really was, someone who had made mistakes, but someone who also needed help to heal. We were both broken, but there was a chance to rebuild. It wouldn't be easy, but nothing worth having ever was. We'll figure it out, I said quietly, reaching out to take her hand. It felt like a small step, but it was a step towards something better. But first, we need to talk. We need to be honest with each other, no matter how hard it is. She looked at me, her eyes filled with relief. She nodded, her grip tightening around my hand. We didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, we both knew we were willing to face it, together. The road ahead wouldn't be perfect. There would be tough conversations, moments of doubt, and healing that would take time. But in that moment, as we sat there side by side, I knew we were both ready to rebuild what we had, one honest conversation at a time. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I could breathe again.